Remember Kevin Mitnick, the notorious kid who went to prison several times, the most wanted hacker on the FBI list back in the days, and then later became the world's most famous hacker? Well, there's a story associated with Kevin's arrest that's not talked about by many, and the story is about how he ended up caught by the FBI. It might come as a shocker to you, but the FBI did not catch Kevin, because Kevin, through his hacks, he managed to hack the police communication, which helped him to know every time when they are about to arrest him, which made it difficult to catch Mitnick. The man who managed to catch Mitnick was called Tsutomu Shimomura, who managed to get the location of Kevin and called in the FBI, and that's how he ended up arrested. The only reason why they managed to arrest Kevin was because Kevin underestimated the capability of the police and didn't think they would catch up to him. Hence, he was not prepared when he got caught. Shimomura is a physics mathematician who worked in the University of California in the research department. In the year 1994, when Shimomura was out with his friends trying to go for skiing, Kevin or the people close to him managed to hack into Shimomura's computer. When Shimomura heard about the incident, he and one of his friends decided to fly back and figure out how his computer was hacked and what damage had been done. At that time, Shimomura had no intentions to go after Mitnick. His goal was to find what vulnerability had been used to hack his computer and how this person broke into the system to prevent this from ever happening again. He did this by playing detective, where he was looking for clues like things that have been modified and covered up, things that have been changed, and try to tell things that have been moved or removed. The detective work that was being done by Shimomura took him a week to do so, analyzing different types of data to figure out how the hack had been done, and at this point, things started to calm down. A few days later, a new trail popped up after John Markov wrote some article on the new attacks that were being used, and some people started responding about some of Shimomura's files showing up a service provider in Northern California that's called The Well. It seemed that the site was actively being used as a site for breaking into other sites. It was like an electronic tool chest sort locker where breaking tools were being stored. After hearing this, Shimomura decided to set up a student to investigate at his request, and a few days later, the student reported back to Shimomura and told him that he had found a lot of stolen stuff, from operating systems to micrographics, and all these things are of great commercial value, and some data of Shimomura were on the site too. On 6th February, Shimomura decided to go for Kevin Mitnick. Shimomura and his team were trying to follow this digital trail on the network to figure out where this person or persons were coming from, though it looked like a single individual. They continued to try and determine where the information was coming from on the internet to site, where the next site in line was Netcom Online Communication Services in San Jose. Shimomura managed to determine that there was a particular user who matched their profile, but they didn't know who it was. At this point, Shimomura had an hypothesis that it was Kevin Mitnick. They saw some employee from Netcom who the identity was unknown was complaining about John Markov putting his picture on the front page of the New York Times. Shimomura decided to ask John Markov whose picture he put in the front page of the New York Times, and John Markov said Kevin Mitnick, and at this point, Shimomura had a name. Shimomura proceeded with his investigation, and he suspected that Kevin might be using a cellular phone to dial in. He started to work with the cellular companies that allowed them to match things all the way back to the cellular system. They were able to determine by looking at the cellular records that Kevin Mitnick was in a 1-kilometer radius of a particular cellular station in Northern Carolina. This took Shimomura 6 days to determine the possible area that Kevin Mitnick might be located at, but at this point, they didn't have an exact location yet. Shimomura flew to Carolina with a cellular telephone technician guy and drove around Raleigh trying to hunt down the signal using some radio direction finding equipment. They managed to find the apartment that Kevin was in, and they called in the FBI. The night that this was happening, Kevin was out of the apartment. He was at the gym that night, and after his gym session, he went out to have dinner and started to make his way back home. Kevin had arrived at his home at around 11:30 or 12, and at this time, the FBI had the whole apartment building under their surveillance because they didn't manage to pinpoint the exact location where the signal was coming from. Kevin parked his car and he had no idea that the building was full of FBI. He suddenly started having a feeling that something was wrong. Around 1, Kevin decided to open the door and peeped out of the parking lot, and thought to himself that he must have been paranoid, and shut the door. Him opening the door and peeping outside is what got him caught by the FBI. Kevin went to court, and it was at this point he met Shimomura for the first time. Kevin went to Shimomura and told him, "I respect your skills," before taken to prison. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. My name is Karim Chata, and see you on the next one.